Good evening, everyone. Chip Cooper for FTC Guardian and my partner, Alan Cutts. Here we are, the last Hangout in the month of November 2018. After the Thanksgiving holiday, and if you were on the last Hangout, you may recall that we talked a little bit about our plans, and mine worked out well, as they usually do for Thanksgiving, the most drama-free, let me put it that way, the most drama-free holiday of them all. That's why I like it so much. We do a double dip on Thanksgiving. We have one big one at the sort of around the noon hour. Then we travel to another family setting, and we have another one again in the evening. And I'm really starting to feel bad about 9 o'clock in the evening, because I've probably overeaten, and it's going to probably take me a couple of months to work off the extra pounds. But I had a great time. Got to, visit with a lot of family, children, grandchildren, all of that stuff. It was really good, all good. So now we're sort of on cruise control until Christmas, but more about that later. Alan, what about you?
First, just so you know, you should get your screen showing, which is fine.
Yeah, let me get off of that.
Yeah. Okay. No, really good. We had a good Thanksgiving here. Not a lot going on for us. Our kids are in Florida. We're going to go see them next week or week after next in Florida for a week or so. But no, it's been really good. A lot of business, a lot of business. And just so you guys know, the Better Business Bureau is really looking at businesses. I was telling Chip about some businesses that we got, new customers that came on. They got letters from the Better Business Bureau about their privacy policies and or lack of privacy policies. So just so you know, you're at the right place in the right time, and being a member of FTC Guardian for sure. So
excellent.
Yeah.
So I guess now we go back.
Yeah, pull the screen back up. Yeah,
we've all been looking at here for the first couple of 3 minutes. So let's go back. We've all seen it, and here we are at GDPR 10 enforcement priorities, and we have not yet discussed enforcement at all. We've been talking about the requirements, that sort of thing, but we're going to become involved in enforcement. And I have an announcement to make. As soon as I get through with the housekeeping that you've seen so many times, the presentation is for informational purposes only. It is not legal advice, and we're not affiliated with the FTC. So that's our sort of part of our title slide. But this is what I want to announce to you at this time. Very significant, and I must say it gives me a certain amount of pleasure to say and to announce that this is the final installment in our series on GDPR, which started way back in the late spring and continued once a month for up until now. And you see GDPR 10 at the bottom. That's the topic for this evening. And this concludes our series on GDPR. Very happy to make that announcement, because I'm probably almost as weary of talking about GDPR as you might be listening to it. It's something we need to talk about, no question about it. But I'm also interested in getting back to discussing the Federal Trade Commission and other legal issues that are just as important to you in the operation of your online business. So I'm happy to announce this is it. Not to say that we won't have an isolated presentation, maybe one or two next year, every year, one or two, probably dealing more with enforcement about what's going on in that area. But this concludes our series, our basic series of GDPR related Hangouts. And before I leave this screen, I want to make it very clear that you see the disclaimer at the bottom in yellow. This coverage is not intended to be, and certainly is not exhaustive, meaning that this is not what we have covered in this series of 10 Hangouts is not every single thing that you need to know about GDPR. It is a summary of what we think is most applicable to small businesses, which is primarily what our membership consists of. So it's not exhaustive, and that's the one disclaimer I want to make before we move on. All right, so let's begin with what is the IAPP. I'm not going to read this full definition taken from wikipedia.com, but I am going to say very simply that it stands an acronym for the International Association of Privacy Professionals. So this is an international association of people worldwide who are professionals in the area of privacy and also data security. And so if you were to cut these people, they would bleed GDPR and other privacy and data security matters. So these are the experts. This is the trade association or professional association to be involved in if you're a player in GDPR. And doing some research, I noticed that IAPP has this infographic, which we're going to make available to you. And I believe Alan has just discovered that there is a file sharing capability here in Webinar Jam where you can download this particular infographic, which we're going to be discussing in this presentation. Also, you see the link there at the top of this page in the chat box. Alan should also have a copy of that link. So if you don't grab this file, at least grab the link and go there and you'll see this infographic. So this is where we really want to start, and it's going to be somewhat difficult for you to probably read the white text under the heading GDPR enforcement priorities. So I'll read it very quickly because it's extremely important regarding the issue of what should we expect or not expect in terms of what might happen to us regarding enforcement. And here it is. This is very important because it comes from IAPP. European supervisory authorities have shed light on their initial enforcement priorities. The French CNIL publicly acknowledged the difficulty of complete GDPR compliance. And you recall we've used the term perfect compliance in prior discussions, stating that companies not yet fully compliant can expect to be treated leniently initially, provided that they have acted in good faith, right? Treated leniently if you're acting in good faith. And then it goes on to say, the Dutch AP has similarly stated that, quote, fines will only be imposed at the beginning if it is obvious something is very wrong, close quote, in response to the fears of local municipalities. So the final sentence there in white text reads, what do, quote, acting in good faith, close quote, and, quote, very wrong, close quote, mean? Follow our handy flow chart to see if you're likely to come into the crosshairs of European regulators. So this is why we're going to be going through this infographic step by step, because the experts in the field believe that these are the keys to, at least initially, being compliant to the level of acting in good faith and not doing anything very wrong, as they say there. So we're going to go step for step there and discuss what we've already covered in this series of GDPR Hangouts for you. So this is the first one. Have you appointed a DPO, a data protection officer? And I'm going to tell you now that you don't have to worry about this one at all, because a DPO is not something that is expected for small businesses to do. So we begin with a gimme, so to speak. No worries, not applicable to small businesses. We move on. Then we go to step 2, and you can see here, if you answer yes, you move on to the right to the next question. If no, you then go back here to the danger area where the shark is in the water. You see, that's how the infographic works. So the number 2 question is data inventory and mapping. Do you know what data you collect and hold, where it is stored, and how it is used and how it is secured? Now, if you look at the bottom, you'll see that in our GDPR number 8, that hangout, where we talked about data mapping and the right to be forgotten, we talked about where is your data. We also talked about your privacy policy and the categories of data that you collect. We talked about the process of data mapping involving the data items, data format, and transfer methods and where the data is stored. So if you refer back to GDPR 8, You can see what is required, generally speaking, for this particular requirement. Moving on, gap analysis. Have you completed a fundamental assessment comparing internal practices to the requirements of the GDPR, yes or no? And you see the reference at the bottom to our GDPR number 9 Hangout titled Data Security, where we discussed what is data security. We talked a little bit about Article 32 of the GDPR regarding not only the technical aspects of security, but the organizational aspects. And we also talked about, you can see in the third bullet, the cost of implementation, very significant because it would be highly unreasonable to expect a very small business to have the resources that a large company would have in order to invest in GDPR compliance. And then finally, we actually had an infographic there in that Hangout regarding data protection and the risk detection checklist. So GDPR 9 can help you satisfy the requirements of that particular situation, that requirement. Then we move on to the next one entitled Security. Do you have and maintain a clear security policy, including industry standard practices such as hard drive encryption and data retention limitations? If you refer back to GDPR 2, Title 2 Data Security Policies in the member area, we actually discussed our two policies. One is for mid-sized businesses, which some of you have yet to achieve that status yet, but we added a new policy, which is a developmental policy for small businesses. So we described in great detail what a data security policy might encompass, and we pointed you to two documents that we have in our member area. So refer to that for further information. Then we move further into documentation. Are you maintaining documentation of privacy and security efforts and issues? And if you refer back to GDPR 4, specifically involving opt-in forms and DPAs or data processing agreements, we talked about consent requirements and consent record keeping. We didn't go into great detail on documentation, but we did cover those aspects of it in GDPR 4. Moving ahead, lawful basis for processing. Have you identified a lawful basis for processing personal data? There are a number of these lawful bases that we did not go into, but we did focus in GDPR number 6, discussing cookies, Article 6, our lawful basis, number 5 and number 6, unambiguous consent and the legitimate interest of a data controller. And most, if not all of you, are acting or will act as a data controller because you have opt-in forms and you collect data directly, or you may collect data directly from an EU data subject. So in our discussion in GDPR 6 regarding cookies, we talked about Article 6 regarding the lawful basis, particularly numbers 5 and number 6. So refer back for that particular coverage. Now, moving ahead, privacy notice in parens transparency. Does your privacy notice clearly explain your privacy practices and explain the rights of your data subjects? Now, they use the term in this infographic, privacy notice. That means the same thing as privacy policy or privacy statement. And in GDPR 5, Title Privacy Policy, we talked about those, and we actually have documents in the member area, a privacy statement, very short form, dealing only with GDPR requirements, and then a general privacy policy that blends in GDPR coverage into our regular privacy policy. So all of that is addressed in GDPR 5 regarding the privacy policy. All right. So if you can answer yes to those things, and you clearly have references to our prior Hangouts dealing with them, if you can answer yes, then the idea is that you are probably safe, at least initially, from any type of enforcement action, right? And this is coming from the experts in the privacy field internationally. So I believe that we should give them a certain amount of credibility in this area when they say that you're reasonably safe if you can answer yes to most or all of those questions. And again, we visit this idea of the concept of perfect compliance. You remember in the panel discussion, I was, I guess, pleased to at least not participate in, but listen to and observe. The panelists, again, who were all experts in this field, were talking about the concept of perfect compliance and raised the issue about whether it's actually attainable, perfect compliance. And the concept was that probably not, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't strive for protection. So again, this addresses some of the same ideas that we talked about earlier. So here we are again at the list of these Hangouts. You can see 1 through 10. This is going to cover our complete coverage of our initial series on GDPR. The only things we'll cover in the future are probably some isolated enforcement issues as they happen, but we're not going to keep going every month with at least one of these matters. And again, you're reminded of our disclaimer. This is not exhaustive. We've just provided what we think is a good summary of what small businesses need to know in order to begin compliance with GDPR. Here are the basic takeaways here. There are 10 GDPR Hangouts. They're from the perspective of small business because that's who our members are. The coverage is not exhaustive. We don't cover everything, just the basics. Perfect compliance, probably not attainable. And the IAPP seems to agree. These experts seem to agree, but we should strive for perfect compliance. And the Hangouts provide a good foundation for GDPR basics. The tags that will go into the replay video for this Hangout are these: GDPR, GDPR basics, GDPR enforcement, GDPR enforcement priorities, and IAPP.org. So that is the end of this presentation. You see the closing slide here that you've seen many times. I'm going to remove us from the screen view, the screen share. And there's Alan. So if there are any questions here, we'll be happy to address them, and also look ahead briefly to the single Hangout we have next month. We've had a request from at least a couple of members about internet or taxation of internet transactions, online sales, that sort of thing. You recall we had a major change coming out of the U.S. Supreme Court earlier this year regarding the Wayfair case, which basically overruled a prior case that's been around for a long time known as Quill. And the problems facing small businesses are huge, right? So the question is what to do. We don't have the perfect answer, but we have some new information to share next month. In our one Hangout for December, we saved the latter part of December for Christmas holidays and other holidays that are related. So that's what we have in the future. Do we have any questions or people sort of?
Guys, if you have any questions, go ahead and post them. I know it takes a little while for you, there's a lag, right? So if you have a question or whatever, now's your time to post it. Chip already kind of went over a little bit about what we will be discussing next month is the taxation, because we have had a number of people just with the end of the year and it kind of being high profile right now. There's a lot of taxation stuff going on out there. So Chip's did some due diligence, and we have an entire Hangout around that. But if you have questions right now, now's the time to get them in. And if you'll remember, next month, for the month of December, we do only have one Hangout, and we already have the date picked. I believe it was December the 18th. Is that correct, Chip? Yeah. It's going to be Tuesday, December the 18th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Just one from James that I'm just now seeing come through. Are all the presentations available online? Yeah, James. I don't know how long you've been a member, but yes, all of our Hangouts since the beginning of time are in the membership area. And you can either search them by chronological order and just look at them all, or if you happen to, looking for something specific, you can throw in a key tag, and it will pull it all up. So
yeah, and I really stumbled onto this infographic that was presented here in this Hangout and was extremely happy to find it because I was trying to figure out a way to summarize what we've done and try to hit the high spots, the really important aspects. And I was having a hard time being satisfied that I was coming up with the right list of these aspects. And then I stumbled on this one, doing some research online. And wow, these are the professionals, and these are what they believe, the critical issues are. So I tried to relate what we've already covered to their list of critical issues. So my recommendation is begin with this Hangout, look at those points raised by IAPP, and then go to those Hangouts and check those out and cover those bases. And then anything else that's covered, in that list of Hangouts, you might take a look at. But, I would follow this list right here as a beginning point.
Yeah. Also, while I'm thinking about it, if any of you are interested in, emailing your list or whatever for a webinar, we will be doing a webinar in December as our last webinar, last in-house webinar for FTC Guardian. And it's a great time because it's the end of the year, several reasons. From tax purposes, if you are trying to reduce costs, it's a good time to spend money because you can reduce your costs by purchasing stuff for business. So it's a good time to do that. And in general, it's just a good time for sales. So we will be doing a webinar sometime in the middle of the month. And if you're interested in being an affiliate, just email support at FTC Guardian, and we'll make sure that you get your affiliate links and that you're set up. If you're not an affiliate already, you will need to be an affiliate first before we can send you your affiliate links and that kind of stuff. So, but if you're interested in doing a really good promotion, we'll be doing a webinar towards the middle of December sometime. Roger,
let me jump in and say this. I'm not the marketing guy, obviously. Alan is. But we've been doing this, I think, every year since we've been in business, since 2014. And it's always been a surprise to me that some of our members who, they don't have to have huge lists.
No.
They're affiliates, they're members. They qualify to be an affiliate because they're a member. And, of course, they've got to get, checked in and all that. But some of them, very surprisingly, do very well. Even in December, which I would think is a bad month because people are buying Christmas stuff and all that.
Yep.
But it's always been a pleasant surprise for me to see some of our smaller members do extremely well on this last promotion. So
yeah, and if you've got a business, and this is the way I think, because I run several businesses, that if you run a business and you make a profit, the end of the year is when you want to spend as much money as possible. Anything that you can think of that you need in the first quarter of the next year, you want to buy it in the year that you're in, because you can take it off that year's taxes. And you want to plan ahead and spend as much money at the end of the year as possible. So it's a good time for businesses. We got a question from Roger. I set up websites for clients. Who is ultimately responsible for compliance? Basically the client is responsible for compliance, and I hope you are not developing their privacy policies for them or giving them guidance in privacy policies. Chip, you want to speak to that real quick, because that's not what you should be doing at all, period.
There are a couple of things you need to understand. If all you're doing is setting up a website, it's your client's responsibility. They own this website, or at least they're licensing or renting it from you. They're the ones who are responsible for putting it out, publishing it to the public. They provide the content for it, right? So if that is all you're doing, it is their responsibility, but it would be excellent if you remind them that it is their responsibility, because a lot of them probably assume that it's yours, right? So a reminder would be helpful. However, this is important. If you cross the line and not only provide the website, but engage in messaging, write the text for a sales page, help them with hooks and messaging for advertising. Now you're acting as an agency, an advertising agency, by providing that messaging. And you are regulated directly by the Federal Trade Commission. They're also regulated they are the advertiser, you're the agency, and each of you would be regulated slightly differently by the Federal Trade Commission. So if you cross that line, then it's your responsibility as an agency to the extent you're involved in messaging. And then finally, as Alan indicated, the worst thing you could do would be to provide privacy policies or other legal documents to your members, because it looks like you're practicing law without a license. And if there's any type of issue that arises, they're going to come back to you and say, well, you gave me the privacy policy and I just got sued by the Federal Trade Commission, so I think I might cross-claim over against you, right? Yep. So what you really want to do is stay away from that and, refer them to us, become an affiliate. We believe that we're not practicing law without a license either. We clearly disclaim that, provide all the information that we're acting as a trainer and a consultant, but we're not acting as your attorney. So we can do that, and I think we can take that risk off of you. So that's a better approach for you.
Yeah. We had, like I say, we had a Better Business Bureau person come to us just last week, and that's the same problem. Is they had a privacy policy, but it was like a copied privacy policy from somebody else, and it didn't include everything it needed to include. But the website developer just put it on their website, and the BBB came out and said, "No go. We're basically sending your stuff upstream to the Federal Trade Commission or whatever, and we're going to retract your BBB fees, or not fees, but your accreditation, your accreditation for the Better Business Bureau." So, you don't want to be there at all. What if you are a hosting reseller? If you're a hosting reseller, you've got to be compliant, but your clients, it's their responsibility. Right. And you guys, so much of the time, and I want to make sure you guys don't, you don't get caught up in that, but it seems like everybody gets caught up in privacy policy equals compliance. It doesn't, privacy policy doesn't equal compliance. No different than legal pages equals compliance. Yes, the privacy policy needs to be there, but compliance is a part of FTC Guardian and understanding what compliance is. Whether you're generating hooks, you're generating ads, you're generating stuff, you're doing tracking. We've gotten into data protection now, where we're helping you with your data. What's the data security agreement? Your data security agreement. So just because you have a privacy policy does not equal compliance. And you should never think that, or never lead your customers down that path.
Well, it's partial compliance. It's one of the things you need to do, but we believe the real service we offer, in addition to these documents, including the privacy policy, which is important, is the strategies and the information about how to manage your risk. And you recall, I guess it was last month, we talked about certain type of testimonials, and some are high risk and some are not. You just need to know the difference, right? Yeah. We talk about ad claims all the time. Some of those, depending on what they are and how they relate to your product or service, can be extremely risky. And then in some ways, there are ways to advertise with no risk at all. It's probably a good idea to know the difference. So that information is really what we're all about. The documents are including privacy policy, but how you use that information to decide, okay, I think I want to run a risk. That's right. You. Or maybe I don't. At least you know, right? Yeah. And so,
think about it, guys. A privacy policy doesn't make you any more compliant than having a driver's license makes you a lawful driver.
Right.
You can get a driver's license that doesn't make you a lawful driver. And the same, you can have a privacy policy that doesn't make you a compliance, person. What you're doing.
And you need a privacy policy.
Exactly. You need both of them, but that isn't the end all. Yeah, you need it, but that doesn't make it work. So you need to think about it like that when you're doing it.
Let me say, I'll get on my soapbox one more time. Well, just maybe one. I really believe that if all you do is make a promise to yourself, and New Year's resolutions are right around the corner, right? This would be a good one to make. is always attend these Hangouts if you can, or if you cannot, watch the replay video. And if that is all you do, you'll be surprised how over a fairly short period of time, what we're telling you about how to operate your business sort of risk-free or moderate risk assessment, that sort of thing, it sort of falls into place. It doesn't require a lot of study and effort, but I think if you just say, all right, you know, I'm busy, I have all sorts of things going on, but if I'm gonna commit to attend these Hangouts or at least watch the things, you know, 6 or 8 months down the road, things are going to start really falling into place without your studying or really getting, you know, investing massive amounts of time and sweat equity and all of that. I'm a big believer in that because there are a lot of principles that we discuss in sort of different ways depending on the topic. And after a while, you sort of home in on that stuff and it starts making a lot of sense. That's all. Any questions?
Mike, the file is up here so that I set it in there so people can download that little PDF, or not a PDF, a JPEG file if you want to. I add the link so you can go to that website if you need to. And that is all I have. Guys, we look forward to maybe seeing everybody on the 18th of December, I believe it is. And we'll put out an email. If you're already an affiliate, we will put out an email to all the affiliates about the webinar we'll do in the middle of the month. If you want to be an affiliate and you want to promote it, then you need to join our affiliate program, which if you go to the website and scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a link called affiliates. You click that, you join an affiliate program, and it takes usually 24 hours or so for Molly to approve you to make sure you're a member. And you want to make sure you use the same email address. It's a simple thing. Make sure you use the same email address to become an affiliate that you use for FTC Guardian. That way Molly can match the two up simply, and she can get you taken care of there. But we'll do that. And that's about all I have. So I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Yeah.
If you're a little bit GDPR weary, I am as well. And I'm very, very happy to be jumping into, well, finishing up next month with something that directly relates to operating your business. And then next year, we're getting back to all of those topics as well. I look forward to it. Look forward to seeing you guys next month. Have a very good evening, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.